Let's spend some time learning a little bit about OpenAI's new tool, Operator. So let's begin. What is Operator? Well, it's an agent created by OpenAI for autonomous web tasks. Well, what is an agent? Well, think of an agent as a version of a chatbot like ChatGPT that you can give a task and let it go off and run and do it, even if it involves several steps, maybe going online and searching for something and having to do other things besides just giving you a response. Now, because Operator is based upon the web, this means that it can go out into the web and use an internet browser to do tasks. And not just simple things like search, but actually do really complex things. It can simulate what you can do, like typing, clicking, scrolling. It can enter information into forms. You can have it book travel for you. It can even create memes. So think of it as ChatGPT, but instead of using it just to chat, you're letting ChatGPT control a web browser. How does it function? Well, first off, it uses something called a computer using agent. So this is basically GPT 4.0, which has been trained on how to operate a browser. So it doesn't just read text, it can actually see elements on the page and figure out how to interact with them. And what this is really doing is taking screenshots, figuring out what the next step is, clicking on a button, seeing what the action is, and then proceeding on to the next step. Now, we'll get into the speed a little bit later, but it isn't as fast as maybe you are for some tasks, but it is great for letting it run in the background and doing something that maybe you don't have the time for. What tasks can you do with it? Well, you can fill out forms, you can data entry, you can do shopping, you can do travel booking, memes, image editing, think about navigating the web, etc. I used it to find a present to buy for my wife. I simply said that she loves the movie Aliens, is a fan of James Cameron, and it found me something really cool on Etsy and saved me a lot of time, although the thought was all mine. Is it currently available to all users? Not right now. It's in what's called a research preview phase. This is basically where they put something out there to get feedback to see how well people use it, what are the rough spots on it, how they can improve it. So it's only available at this point to ChatGPT Pro subscribers, but that'll probably change. And it's only available in the US. The pattern for OpenAI has been to put something out on a small basis, understand how it works, and then release it wider. It's like beta testing. It's essentially the same thing because you don't know how well it's going to work until you put it out there into the world. And they've had a history of research projects sometimes becoming way more popular than they realized. I was at OpenAI during the time that we decided to launch ChatGPT as a research preview, and it turned out it was kind of a hit. So, how does Operator ensure user privacy and security? One, they're built in safeguards. You'll notice as you use it, it's going to ask you for confirmation. If you want to enter in a password or do something else like that, you will take over the browser and you will enter in that information. It does a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that this information is kept secure and doesn't go crazy. You don't have to worry about giving it your credit card and it's going to start buying a bunch of GPUs. Probably. Can it interact with any website? Just about any website. It works with most standard websites. It can do most interfaces. If it's a really complex interface, there can be a problem. And I've got some tips on how to use it for complex tasks. Like instead of entering data into a spreadsheet, use a form so it doesn't get confused by all the other text. There could be some other challenges, for instance, like watching video or really highly interactive websites. I've noticed that, for instance, iCloud, which is Apple's cloud version of what you want to use for accessing apps like Notes when you're on the web, has issues with WebGL. But most of the things I've gone to try, it's worked pretty well. But there might be some limitations there. And when you find one, let OpenAI know. They're working all the time to improve the capabilities of Operator. So, what is a computer using agent model? As we mentioned before, it's not just enough to have a text model. When you look at a web page, there's elements in many, many different places that you might want to act upon. And an AI has to know which one is important. For instance, that you want to go find a news article and not click on an ad. So, this model has been trained to use its vision capabilities and a lot of reasoning to understand what's important on a page and to think sort of like how you do. So this is done using reinforcement learning, which is basically a method of telling it this is the right way as opposed to the wrong way. And over time, it improves a lot. And it's been trained on a ton of different websites. I have been impressed with the variety of websites it's been able to interact with and perform tasks with. How does Operator differ from traditional AI assistants? Because it's web based, this means that I don't have to connect to some backend server or use code to solve a thing. If there's a web front end, then Operator's very good at doing that. We've had things like GPTs and other tools which are very useful, but might require special APIs. Those are what we call application protocol interfaces. It's just a way for one computer system to talk to another. By using the web as you and I use it, it makes it able to do a lot more things. So, what are the limitations of Operator? Well, it's still a research preview. This means that it's not always going to work. It might be buggy, it might be slow, it might not be operating at the time you want to use it. It may be way more cautious. I found that it asks a lot of times for permission to do things. You're going to probably run into some errors. Really complicated tasks might be a problem for it. But remember, this is where it starts. It gets better from here. There's going to be a reliable path towards improving it, and it's not going to be available everywhere and for every users. And there's also a limitation on the amount that you can use it. There was a certain limit. I ran into that the other day, playing around with it, but I would tell you I got plenty of usage out of it, and I was just playing around to find other things I could do with it. How does Operator handle sensitive actions like purchases? You're going to see a lot of safeguards. When it's time to enter in a password, it's going to ask you to take control of the browser. Think of it like a self driving car. When it encounters a situation it doesn't want to handle, it says, "Hey, I need you to take over it." What happens then is you have a button, you press, it opens up the browser, and then you go do what you need to do. It'll ask you for confirmation. It's going to have protections in there about financial transactions. They've trained this computer using agent to be very careful around financial transactions because it's very important. And you're going to get asked for step by step verification. But if you see it do something unsafe, tell it no, stop it, and also use user feedback. One of the things you can do too is interrupt Operator as it's working and tell it to do something differently. Is Operator capable of learning from its interactions? Well, yeah, it's using reinforcement learning, it's continuously improving performance. You can, by default, share your interactions with it to OpenAI so they can improve it. But if you don't want to, you can turn that off and keep everything to yourself. That's fine. I tend to share this because I want the models to get better faster. And you can also give it input. If you tell it to do something differently, you can tell why, and it will learn why you did that task one way instead of the way it thought it was supposed to do. And this continues to improve and it's able to adapt to new scenarios. Can developers integrate Operator into their application? OpenAI has said that they're going to have API access at some point. So, what does this mean? It means that you might see Operator in other applications. There might be situations where you want to build something out specifically around it. It might be situations where people want to add extra tools to it. We're going to see what's going to happen, but the plan is to make it widely available as many places as possible. And if you look at the number of places you find chatbots now, you can see that there's going to be a lot of potential to power tools with Operator. How does Operator's vision capability work? Well, underneath it all, as we said, is GPT 4.0, the model behind ChatGPT. And it's used to interpret visual elements, recognize UI, layouts, and process screenshots. But really, the technical explanation is that just like we can take the text and the words that we speak and convert them into what we call tokens, which are numerical representations, you can do the same thing with images. You can take an image and break it down into patterns, and these patterns are what it looks for. And these patterns might be different than the kinds of patterns that you and I pick up. Humans are susceptible to certain kinds of optical illusions. So is a system like Operator where you might have no trouble looking at a very complex page and picking out something specific. There might be situations where you think a lot of these elements don't make any sense, and Vision is able to accurately pick out what it's trying to do. But roughly speaking, think of it as something taking screenshots, analyzing those, and figuring out what to do next. What measures are in place to prevent Operator from making errors? As we mentioned before, there's user confirmation requirements. It uses a cloud browser, so it's not using your own browser. Everything you're doing is happening on a remote server, which is securely handled by OpenAI. This is to prevent Operator from doing something that might affect your own system. Eventually, these things will be more secure and you might let it take over your entire computer, but for right now, it controls a cloud based browser. There are moderation tools to make sure that it's not doing something it shouldn't be. And like I said before, you can take control as it's doing something and stop it. There's a pause button. How does Operator compare to other AI agents? Well, I found in my experience that it's a bit more robust and less brittle than some other systems I've played with that also interact with the browser. I don't have to load any code or run anything off of my computer other than just open up my browser and work with it. It's got a pretty broad task compatibility, it's pretty autonomous, and it's very adaptable. So I found that in my experience, it is the best browser operating agent that I've worked with, but it's going to be competitive. Other people are going to come out with systems and watch this space improve very quickly. What are the future plans for Operator? OpenAI said they want to expand user access beyond the US. They're looking for deeper ChatGPT integration. They're going to have an API, enhanced capabilities, and broader platform support. Expect it to get better fast with a lot of feedback. Is Operator an app you download? No, actually, it just works in the browser. So you go in your browser to control another browser. And some people found out that if you try to operate Operator through your operator, you'll get a special message, which basically says, nice try. So there's nothing you have to download, and it can work on your phone. It's optimized for a phone use, tablet, or your computer. I think it's really cool. I pulled out my phone and I've saved Operator to my home screen, which makes it very easy to perform tasks when I'm not in front of my full computer and I just need an extra pair of hands to do something. Is Operator suitable for business applications? Absolutely. It streamlines operations, automates tasks, it increases efficiency, it can reduce your manual workload, it's very scalable. I've been using it for the different things that I have to do, and I found it extremely useful. I've loved using it for creating forms and for handling other kinds of data. I found it's very useful for tools I love to use like Notion. So it's extremely useful right now in business, particularly if you have repetitive tasks that just involve clicking in a browser. How does operators reinforcement learning work? Well, this is a method of learning where an AI can improve by learning from past interactions, get better decision making, figure out new scenarios, refine its performance, and continuously optimize itself. So every time you give it feedback, you're one, helping it do the task that you're trying to do, but also this data can be used to teach operator how to improve in the future so that it doesn't make that mistake anymore. So this is really exciting to think about is that however you use it now, it's going to be a lot better 6 months from now. It's going to be a very different experience. Can Operator be customized for specific tasks? Well, yeah. There's going to be an API, and there's ways in which you can save your workflow. For example, if you perform a task with it, give it some instruction, it completes it, you can save that task and come back to it later and do it again. You can also add in custom instructions like you can with ChatGPT. You can tell it your favorite websites, your do's and don'ts, the way you want it to handle things, and make it your own personal tool. So that's 20 questions and answers about OpenAI's Operator. If you have more, let us know.